right, welcome everybody to Jake's Take. I believe this is episode 7, but as if you listen to every episode I've had so far, I never know what episode we're on. So let's go with 7. Today I have a very special guest, as always, the one and only Bobby Puim. Bobby is the operation manager, team operational manager, I'm going to go with. He's laughing because we literally just went over that probably 3 times and I messed it up. So we'll do that on an after take there. But welcome, Bobby. Thanks for joining me today, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. We just make up titles around here, anyways, right? So it's going to be director of whatever we want it to be today.
So,
it's great.
So one more time, just so everybody has it, you are for REC Canada.
The director of team operations is the official one. That's what's on the business card, but who knows?
Right on. But maybe we can get into a little bit of that and what you do for the team and something like that. But I really wanted you to come on today because whatever your title is at the team, I see you as kind of my go-to guy for tenant questions or tenant representation questions or landlord matters. You seem to have a lot of knowledge, a lot of background in that field. And I know that's always a big question, right? When dealing with multifam. All my clients, it's one of the top questions at the top of the list is, I'm worried about tenants. How do we deal with tenants? This and that. So if you don't mind, Bobby, what is your background with tenant management? Is it just purely that you own a lot of or a number of investments, or what's? Let me know, because you're kind of a mystery, honestly. We've been working together for 4 years now, and I know you're working on a garden suite. Because we talk about that around the water cooler and tenants. So let me know. I'm interested, man.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate it. You calling me out on your podcast here with millions of followers is my assumption, right? And we're going to talk about how big my portfolio is. This is fantastic. I love this.
That's it, man.
So just background, I suppose. So I fell into real estate investing pretty honestly. Like I was living in the US. I was going to a graduate program down in Texas, and I needed a way to be able to make money, but legally, so that you never run afoul of what visa issues and stuff can be.
Right on.
Because I was on a student visa, so that's how I came by real estate investing. And in 2015, I decided to move back to Canada. Like, I'm from Cambridge, Ontario, but real estate really paced well with what I was doing. So I'm a former chiropractor, and real estate outpaced. I say, paced well. It really outpaced what I was doing with chiropractic, and it was all passive. And the only thing that I ever really needed to do was be good at 3rd grade math, realistically, and a decent enough people person in order to handle tenants. And then you realize that when you live in a place like Ontario, where we are, that there are rules and regulations and all of that. But I'm a decent operational guy as well. So you start to dive into like what requirements there are and what you can and can't do and whose rights are what and all of those things. So I do manage a portfolio. I used to manage more of a portfolio for some people when I was out educating other investors with like a strategic partner of the REC, Keyspire. I mean, I'm sure people on your podcast know that name at least, right? And we used to just go educate. So not only did I then want to know more about what was happening in Ontario, for instance, but we would travel to Montreal, to New Brunswick, to BC, Alberta, whatever. And we would kind of have to know what was going on there too, or we were useless to the people that we were then coaching up, right? So that's where all of that comes from. And when you then place me into a position like the director of operations with REC Canada, where we have 55 agents in an ever evolving like portfolio mix and all of those things, and like that skill set kind of just
definitely a lot going on there. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You're I don't know what you're the special sauce that keeps things running over there. So, it's amazing. I see what you do. And just before you continue on, Bobby, I wanted to ask about where you learned to invest or your background in investing, because I know you said you're a chiropractor. I did know that, but how do you get from a Texas chiropractor to a real estate entrepreneur? I don't know. Maybe that's a leap. I don't know.
But it wasn't really. So like it all started with there are certain things you're allowed to do on a student visa in the US, right? But like go to school. right? And certain things that you can't do, like you can't work
Yeah.
in most cases. You have to have a work study program or whatever that is. But you're not necessarily bound, like being Canadian and the treaties involved and all the things that I've kind of learned after the fact, right? But like any Canadian can buy a U.S. resident, like a residence, I mean, right? So I brought other students in, they rented from me, and that's sort of how I fell into it. And
Gotcha.
because of that, you know what I mean? Like it became a thing where I understood leverage and I understood what a mortgage was. I had parents that taught me a lot of these things. And when you come by it honestly like that, it's you understand that if you just had one more, that
Yeah.
you'd be able to do it. And this is how you're going to leverage to do that thing. Did I do everything perfectly? Like absolutely not. There was no budgetary demands when I was 27 years old. There was no vacancy allowances. There's no anything. But the mortgages were paid, the taxes
Yeah.
were paid, insurance, repairs, all of those things. And I only rented to like-minded people, right?
Yeah.
So
I think there's something to be said there as well, which is kind of just get into it, give it a shot, whether that's, rent out your other bedroom on Airbnb or something. Just dive into it, because I think that's kind of one of those hurdles where people hear tenant and then automatically their gut turns and they go, oh my gosh, the issues, what they're going to destroy my house, they're not going to pay rent, like they automatically go there, right? When
yeah.
you and there's for every bad story, I'm sure there's 500 good stories
It's
that no one
it,
says.
it's just like, what does Jazzy say, right? Or Simeon even, right? It's if it bleeds, it leads. So if it's a
Yeah.
bad news story, like you're going to hear about it. So you don't hear about the hundreds of thousands of individuals that pay their rent on time in Ontario. You don't hear about the ones that, oh, I have some of the best tenants in the world. They have to be. They do the gardening outside.
Yeah.
They clear their driveways. They don't mind these things. They never ask for a thing. But I also rent to, like I said before, it's kind of a secret sauce maybe, but rent to like-minded people.
Yeah.
If you like, you have to bear with me here. When I was in Texas, I was a medical student. Okay. That's what I was doing, chiropractic, but medical. Ask my mom, it's medical, right?
Yep.
But I only then rented to other medical students or other young professionals that we easily related. They could come to me with an issue. I could ask them of things of them that it was very simple, and communication was always the key. So because it was simple communication, tenancy was simple.
Yeah.
It's when people then believe that one person owes somebody something else, and there's no alignment on what the actual tenancy agreement is, right? A tenant in theory here is somebody that pays you a significant portion of what they make in any given year for housing accommodations. You need to provide safe, clean, affordable housing, right? And they're going to then work their asses off in order to get you the one thing that you require, which is that dollar back, right? It's a partnership. It's an in unison thing. And they only ever go sideways when it's not treated that way, to be fair.
Yeah. And it's and again, it goes back to that, just dive into it, give it a shot. You fail forward, or you learn from your mistakes, or whatever saying you want to use. But really, and it's the same way for me, right? Like I've never had tenant experience until I ended up buying, just this small little rental, single family little condo thing, and kind of stumbled my way through it. And there was some taxes that weren't paid and some missed bills and a few phone calls, but I learned from all of those mistakes to be like, hey, I'm not going to do that next time. Right. That was, let's learn from that and move forward. So Bobby, you went from chiropractor. I believe you managed or owned a bar or something like that as well when you were in the States. Right. And then you went into this sort of pseudo landlord, a couple tenants here. And when did you, I guess, flick the switch to say, hey, I'm really going to focus on building a portfolio or building my real estate investments, and try to maximize that?
I think it was exactly the point where I realized that real estate was outpacing what I was capable of doing with chiropractic. Right. I loved chiro. I loved feeling as though I was helping somebody feel better, and doing all of those things. And in the back of my mind, it's still a passion that if I ever retire into something, it'll be that. Right. But the big but there is, you're in a windowless room for 12 hours a day, and you're a small business owner, and you're only ever making $1 when there's somebody on the table. And then you have to decide, is it better for any one person to be on the table, or Like, are they done with you, and can they move forward? And is preventative maintenance, better than milking an insurance policy? Like, I really don't know how else to say it. And you take all of those things into account, and then you realize that that exact same person needs to pay to live somewhere, right? So whether they're paying a mortgage or they're paying my mortgage, right? That's how it came to be in my mind. So like, I was able to justify a pretty expensive move. Like, think about what a medical degree costs, and then multiply it by US dollars from Canadian dollars.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where you get to this point where you say, like, look, I actually believe that I can make 4x, 10x, 100x, who knows, right? But by just focusing on what that is. So I made the move pretty seamlessly in my mind.
Yeah. No, and I love that, because it's like, out of the guests I've had on so far, most of them either, had some knowledge or some background or learned how to invest through podcasts and stuff like that. But most of them are still working in their day job, or never had a day job to start, right? And kind of just went straight into investing. So I like that we can give a story where, you went from what people consider a high earning position, a very, noteworthy position. You said, hey, like, it's just not the right one for me.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. And so you got into this role, you moved back to Canada. Obviously you're back in Canada now, but
I am back in Canada.
And did you continuously grow your own portfolio? Were you working for were you a property manager? I know you do run a small property management company as well. And then, that's where I think a lot of your knowledge came from, but we'll dive into that. But what did that look like? How did you scale that? Just trying to get some background.
Well, it was a couple of things happened concurrently, I suppose. I broke in with Keyspire, like traveling the country, doing investment education. And I learned from some of the best in this country. Like, I loved him. He's no longer around, but Simon Giannini was out on the road. I get to work pretty closely with Scott McGilvery, Michael Saraceni, Paul Hecht, like Matt Williams, Alfonso Quadra. Like, Paul Hecht and I were super close, and I would learn from these guys. And anybody sort of in the real estate investment world knows who those names are to a degree.
You're name dropping, but
right? I am.
No, but I know. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But I got to be the right-hand man to some of these guys. And on other weekends, it was just 3 dinners a weekend, traveling with these guys and picking up tips and tricks and doing those things. So you also, by proxy, become kind of a face to what then the Keyspire membership has going on.
Right.
And when you look at any one portfolio, like, the reason you wanted to talk to me about tenants today is because, like, it's a dirty word to 99% of investors. Nobody wants them. Yeah. So what do you do as a business-minded guy? All I really did was say, well, I can handle some of those.
Yeah.
That's not a big deal. Right? Like, I'm well educated in it. I've done it well before. And if you allow me the opportunity to be your partner in this, right, then, like, I didn't need to spend any money to get into a portfolio. Some people were paying in equity. Others were paying, percentages. And I was just sort of managing people's portfolios in a scalable area. I would just call it Southwestern Ontario, call it Cambridge to Toronto, Guelph to Hamilton at the time.
Yep.
All right. And I probably had 40, 50 units under management. And I was making just, residuals by communicating with people, filling tenancies, always doing little things like that. But it's also a grind, to be fair.
Yeah.
Right. Like, that part of it's a grind. So I would be out on the road. I would be managing some tenants from afar for the most part. My fiance now, Laura, is an amazing help when it came to these things. And and we just sort of scaled our own portfolio within the confines of what that scalable area was. So we added duplexes. We added a couple of other things. We moved to the city of Toronto because it was more central for us to be able to do all sorts of travel and her job and all that stuff. And slowly but surely, I just sort of paired off into other people's property management companies, other Keyspire members that had started, like Cam Baker at Baker Properties comes to mind, really helped us out in Brantford and Hamilton at one point. And sort of just then downsize so that I could be in a different room having different conversations. And that's what brought me to REC Canada.
Right on. And so let's dive into why I did bring you on, right? So I know you mentioned, hey, tenants. We want to talk about tenants. We want to talk about some of the, let's say, touchy issues or sensitive issues. And let's start from kind of ground up. So let's say, okay, leasing. when you get a property, hey, you got a couple vacancies, let's get those full, let's get those occupied. What was your system, and how did you go about leasing and finding the right tenant? I know you touched on it with saying like-minded people,
Yeah.
but give us, if you don't mind, give us kind of your system that you used leasing up.
I would actually just go to major employers in the area. Hospitals like Cambridge being the example would have been Toyota specifically. And I would make calls to their HR departments and just ask them, can I post on your boards? Do you have an email blaster that goes out? Like, is there anything internal that you guys can do that I can add to? We just look to provide clean and affordable, safe housing for people. And inevitably, like, you wouldn't even believe this. I called Toyota one day and I get I'm not even kidding, a former high school girlfriend now works there, married a friend of mine, kind of lost touch. She's like, holy like, is this Bobby? I'm like, yeah, is this Crystal? Oh my God, no way. Next tenant down the line came direct from her. Hey, somebody just got hired on, this kind of thing, right? So just like any real estate deal, realistically, the best one that you're going to find is the one that you create. The tenants are the exact same way. It's the opportunity that you create to connect with somebody that is like-minded with you. We rent to so many nurses, so many medical professionals, so many young engineers. Laura happens to be an engineer, right? All of those little things combined, then we're relatable. And we're just a group of people, Laura and I, right, looking to, like I said before, and a million times over, it's clean, safe, affordable housing with people that you can relate to so that you always feel as comfortable as possible in your own home. That's what the moral of that story is, right?
No, I love that. I think that's actually really good advice. We did something similar for a lease up of an apartment building where we contacted a hospital right down the block, and we just said, hey, any residents, any new nurses, anybody that wants to come, we got turnkey units, they're beautiful, right? So that's massive advice. I actually really, really like that. I think that will add some value to some people there. And so now we have our tenant, right? We found our like-minded tenant. We're moving forward. Next steps is we're going to be putting together the lease agreement. Do you have anything special with your lease agreements? Do you do like an appendix or anything like that? And then I have a question for you that comes from actually one of my clients, and I want to see how you would answer it.
For sure. So yes is the answer to your question. We definitely have a Schedule A. It goes with every lease.
Okay.
And that actually stems from, so there was a time in this province where you could write your own lease. Do you remember this? When you were able to write your own lease, you could put just about anything that you wanted in there. That's why, in theory, the government of Ontario regulated a lot of these things. So they go ahead and they create.
Sorry, I don't want to cut you off. But when did they switch over from the make your own to the Ontario standard?
Yeah, so I remember it being 2016. I don't know that I'm right on that in Ontario, but inevitably they came down the line with an Ontario standard lease agreement. And what you were allowed to do with that is put a Schedule A into there, right? So portions of Schedule A could or could not supersede the standard lease agreement, okay, from the government. So all we really did was modify an old lease to ensure that everything that we wanted covered was covered in the Schedule A versus in the standard Ontario lease agreement.
And I have a tenant that I got. I put them in the property probably 2014 or something like that. So every time I go for a refinance or something like that, I look at the lease agreement. It's like it's an AREA form with like 2 clauses in there. There's like no smoking and don't ruin the place. And that's about it. So so it's a big leap forward with the Ontario lease.
Yeah. So what we did, like I said, is just amend an older, like previously written lease. I had our real estate lawyer who we had a connection to both. So her husband traveled with me at Keyspire. She used to travel with Keyspire. She's closed on every one of the properties we've ever bought. Just had to review it to make sure that we were compliant, which is something that I would suggest to anybody. Like, don't just do, maybe just check as well. You know what I mean? But she was super happy about it. I ended up templating that for people as well and sort of selling it off in certain cases, right? Like, you can borrow this, you can do that. If you're going to bring me on, you get this, that kind of thing. Right. And we add it to every single lease agreement. Covers things like no sandwich leasing, right? Like definitely no
Yeah.
Airbnb. And I know that
Yeah.
there's like a tick box in your Ontario standard lease agreement, but
Mhm.
what happens when inevitably somebody doesn't know what assigning a lease is? And they go to move on these things and they do it, but you didn't sit down and tell them what was in the Schedule A because you didn't want to communicate. You just, here's a lease, sign it, do your thing.
That's right.
And,
Yeah. Yeah.
right.
Yeah. How well does the Schedule A hold up if you do have to go to the tenant landlord board? Do they recognize that fully as, hey, this is part of the agreement? Because I know there's some sections that might contradict what's in the body of the Ontario lease.
Yeah. So can I tell you honestly, I've never been to the LTB,
Okay.
not even one time. So I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know the answer.
No, and same here, and that's why I'm asking, right? Like it's, and I don't know, maybe someone's sitting there yelling at their screen right now, going, "Oh, that's BS," you know. But
Don't do that. It's bullshit. Yeah, I don't know.
yeah,
I don't know. But
yeah,
when I have spoken to people, like I kind of used to make it a to do, right? It's what would it be? I think that the Schedule A that we normally attach is 6 or 7 pages. When you add that to the 18 pages that an Ontario standard lease agreement is,
yes,
and you go to a coffee shop and you buy the coffee and you talk to them about it, you make them read certain clauses, right? Like you take a really professional stance at this and you do that one time, right? And that's the level of communication that they can come to expect. It really is a really like a relatively simple thing, and they take it seriously. Everybody
like
would,
that. Yeah,
right?
yeah. And I think if you're sitting there with your tenant, you're reading through your Schedule A, and they're going, "Oh, I don't agree with that," or "No, not doing that, not doing that." That might be a red flag right there to say, "Okay, enjoy the coffee, thank you."
Right? And like actually, I just got an emergency call, right?
Yeah,
Like, I used to be able to text Laura. That would be hilarious. It never happened, but text Laura like, "Hey, if I text you, call immediately."
yeah,
Right? Get me out of
yeah,
there. But
yeah,
no, it never happened. And the funny thing is that the exact opposite thing would happen. Okay. So you would explain like what subletting is to the degree that I don't want it to happen. And they'd be like, this is my home. Absolutely not.
yeah.
Right. And they would advocate for you and your place because now they feel like that ownership is almost theirs. That comes with a catch-22 as well. You don't want them to feel like they own the place, but you want them to take ownership in it for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, yeah. Pride to be there, right?
Yeah.
They take care of it. They make it nice. The question I had for you that I mentioned, because it came to me the other day, and it was a good question. I went, very interesting. How would I handle that? And I, kind of did my own little analysis on it. But so say you have, I don't know, not a furnished rental, but let's call it a stove or a fridge or something. But you find that that keeps breaking. So this client called me. He goes, I've like replaced 5. This guy's been in here for 2 years. I've replaced 5 washing machines or 4 washing machines in 2 years. He goes, what do I do? Is there recourse? Can I do something here? Or he said, or can I set myself up in the future not to have this issue?
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted your opinion on that because it was a good question.
It's so again, not something that I've ever run into. But as a value add, we add laundry to every unit that we have. So every
Right.
single unit in the portfolio has that. And I've never run across it. I think the worst that happened was that at like an Airbnb unit that we had, somebody broke a flat top,
Right.
right? The stove, I mean, the glass on the flat top.
How do you break one of those? Because
I
I've
know.
smacked mine with a pan before pretty
Oh,
hard.
we were baffled, right? Like we even had to
Yeah.
say that to Airbnb. Like, oh, I don't even know how you break these things, but he definitely broke it. Wasn't
Yeah.
broken when I was there yesterday. It's broken now, right?
Right.
But to answer that question, I think that, and maybe we're superseding the lease agreements. I really don't know, but I try to write into certain aspects. And maybe this is more relevant for like sharing utilities, things of that nature, or we pay utilities up to a certain point, right? And then anything above and beyond the 12-month average of that particular thing, right? You have to cover. And now I'm wondering, like, could we invent a clause that would be permissible to say, like, you're going to sign off on your lease on your Schedule A, and like, I will replace X, Y, or Z one time, or
Yeah, you get
up to a certain
2 washing machines a year, buddy. Yeah, after that,
right?
you're on your own, right?
But I've never encountered that, and that feels insane. And then I would want to know, what are you buying, right?
Yeah.
I, I don't know if you're buying too cheaply. I don't know if this guy's just super hard on appliances. I really don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
But from the business perspective here, like, I don't want to be outlaying thousands of dollars at a time, but every property needs a capital expense a year in order to make it work on my taxes too. So maybe it's not the worst thing, but 5 and 2 years, I need to see this tenant in action. Right?
Yeah. He's washing his power tools in the,
It's a couple of
machine,
bricks.
right? Yeah. No, and it's exactly that, right? And I think it goes to be said, we're just two real estate professionals having a conversation. I always recommend at the end of every conversation with a client, hey, go speak to a paralegal.
Yeah.
Like, this is what I would do, but go speak to a paralegal because, that's their job. That's their profession. And they're very, very helpful. So we're moving forward. We got the tenant. We've got the lease agreement sorted. How do you go? And I guess the only other thing that comes to mind when people are scared or intimidated would be serving notices.
Yeah.
Right. So everything's hunky dory with your tenant. They're good. We were happy with them. But the rental increase comes along, right? Or they miss a payment or something like that. And we have to spring into action. What's your kind of methodology behind that and how to approach that conversation?
So again, it's over that coffee when they're signing everything in the beginning that every one of these topics is broached, every single one of them. Maybe it's a confidence thing. Maybe it's because I'm good with people. I really don't know the answer, but I've literally never had a problem telling somebody this stuff. Right. So it's at that table over coffee. Listen, guys, our only expectation is that there's 2 of them, I suppose. You pay your rent on time, right? And you leave this place in a state that is similar to what you found it in. And we always provide it in great condition. So I expect great plus 2 years of wear and tear, whatever, right? So when we sit down over that coffee, it's, if you're late with your rent, 12:01 on the 2nd of a month, in most cases, right? That constitutes late. And while I'm kind about it, on the 2nd day of that month, you're going to get an N4 in Ontario. There's other forms everywhere you go, right? But you're going to get an N4 and you're going to be considered late. And we start that process because it can't drag on. We simply cannot let it do that. That's a huge mistake that people make. They believe the story that they're getting, okay? And they don't spring into action straight away. You have to do that. You'll get differing opinions on this, but it's my personal opinion that you just treat it as the letter of the law. You can't go wrong. If they're late, they're late. That's it.
No, and I agree with you fully on that one. And that's why I wanted to bring up that, because I know we've had a brief chat about this before. But what if there's, the tenant wants to do a payment plan, or he's saying, hey, give me to the 15th, I'll get everything, here's a little bit, I'll pay you the rest later. Do you still go serve that N4?
Absolutely. 100%. Because to me, right, the N4 specifically is going to say something like the day that you serve it, a 14-day clock starts. That 14-day clock can't start until the form is served. You can only serve the form in certain ways. So if I said to somebody, Jake's late with his rent, right, and Jake comes to me and says, I'll pay you on the 15th. It's mandated by the N4 that he does that, or I can apply to the LTB for remedy in that particular case. But if I wait, I've just stopped my own 14-day clock, all right, and didn't believe him. And then what if I don't get paid, right? Also, guys, what if the sky was green? Of course, right? But why not take every precaution that you can to protect your now business entity is what this really is, right? So serve the form, right? Be upfront about it. It's going to seem scary to a tenant, and you just have to communicate. I literally say to people over that initial coffee, signing the lease, this form should be taken seriously. It says right on it, you can be evicted. Right? I want you to take that seriously. I also hope that I never have to send one of these things to you guys ever, because that would make you the best possible people to have rented to, and I'll feel really good about that. Right. And then take it all the way down the line. There's a minimum of 13 N forms that I can think of, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So when I tell people, and we do run a small business around this, we have to treat it that way. Okay. You might be 2 of our tenants, and we're more familial than most landlords that you're ever going to find. And I don't even consider myself a landlord, or my words to these people. Right. But I say 90 days prior to the end of your lease, you'll receive an N9. Okay. Is it N9, Jake? No, it's N1. Oh my God. I'm on a podcast.
Hey, I go to use
all the forms,
man. I'm sitting here just nodding along. Right? Yep.
Look, you're going to get your rental increase 90 days prior, right? And if you can't handle that, or you don't want to pay, or you don't want to stay. I just need to know. I just need
Yeah.
to know there's a couple other papers that need to be signed. If you ever want to leave, if you ever find yourself in a situation, there's a form for that too.
Right.
So I really just want you to be able to email me. Another trick of the trade is like never give out your phone number ever.
Yeah.
Right. But just email me. Just shoot me a message and let me know what is going on. If I don't know, I have to assume the worst. Do you want the horror story? Do you want one real quick? Because nothing's perfect, right? November 1st,
Go for it.
2019. This is great. Okay. It was 2019, 2018. I don't remember. November 1st, 2 tenants are late. Great relationship with them leading up to this. I send an email in the morning, 10 a.m. By noon, no response. I craft the N4. By 4 o'clock on the 2nd, no responses. Right. So I send the N4. On the 3rd, okay, I get an email back. How dare you do this to us? We were on our honeymoon, right? And you're like, I feel horrible. Like I'm just another human being, but I didn't know.
Yeah.
Right. So like, guys, I'm super sorry that maybe I ruined your holiday. Like I really don't know what to tell you. But and that relationship was shot from that point forward.
Really. Yeah.
And it's because I didn't take the right steps in communication with them. I blame myself. Right.
Right. And how would you prefer to approach that?
So like I think about that one a lot, right?
Yeah.
Because it truly is like one of maybe 3 times total I've ever had an incident with a tenant, right? And I think that maybe I didn't outlay it the right way at the very, very beginning. Like this happens regardless of where you are. And I actually use it as an example now, right? So when I sit down to do a lease, or now it's all Zoom because of Ontario's 58th lockdown, right?
Yeah.
But
that's a whole other podcast.
But I actually just sit them down and like, look, this actually happened. Okay. Yeah. And I want you to understand, like, because we take this so seriously, I want you to take this so seriously. And because we rent to a lot of young professionals, they're learning their way in the world. And like, they don't realize that calling in sick every day of the month isn't okay, or whatever the example is, right?
I gotcha.
In the same way that they need to email their landlord if something's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, I think biggest lesson is communication. I think across the board, doesn't matter what you're talking about, right? Even with Airbnb, with relationships, communication, man. Like that's it's key. That's awesome. Okay, and then so I get like that's really like the gist. I don't know. I'm trying to think of other examples or something someone's brought to me to say, hey, how would you deal with this, or how would you deal with that? You know, the only other thing I get is the rental increase, which is, in my experience, at least, the tenants have been perfectly fine. As long as you follow the guidelines, they really can't do much about it. And they generally just say, yeah, that's fine. Let's accept it and we'll move forward.
One of the tricks there, like I've always enjoyed this one to a degree. I just think that it's clever, right? Is that I'm going to give somebody a rental increase of what feels like a lot to some people, nothing to others. In most cases, like 30, 40 bucks, right? Yep. But 30, 40 bucks over the course of a year is, call it $360 to $480 or 500 bucks round number a year, right? So go off with that N1, right? With the rental increase form, okay? And you're going to say, here's this, guys. This is this year's increase. This is what is allowed by the government of Ontario. I craft a little email. And also, here's a $25 Starbucks gift card, okay? And they come back and they say, hey, we're totally cool with it. And a month later, I send them another one when their rent is on time. And they get one for Christmas, and they get one for their birthday. And all of a sudden, like, everybody realizes it, right? That you've given them $100 worth of Starbucks gift cards, but they only raise my rent $30 a month because that's what they feel, right? And inevitably, like, I get phone calls from some of the tenants periodically because now they're 3-4 years down the line and they need to have my number, okay? And I can trust these people with my phone number, and like at that point, right? And they say, hey, do you happen to have any available units? My brother's moving in from New Brunswick. Or I have a friend that's looking and her landlord's a shithead, but I tell her about the Starbucks cards that I get and she really wants to rent from you too. Right?
No, it is like repeat business, right? Like you can kind of chalk it up to that. And like, I think the gift card thing is actually genius. I always have 2 or 3 Timmy's gift cards in my briefcase or in my binder. You never know when, right? It's you go for a tour at an apartment building or some a house you want to buy, and there's a tenant.
Yep.
Right. And you can say, hey, man, thank you so much for letting us in. I just want to say thank you. Here's a gift card. Well, you wouldn't imagine all the things they start telling you about the house and
yeah, exactly.
Issues or positive things. Right. So it's nice to have that. And I like that. Right. And try to get that repeat business going.
And they're tax deductible. Right.
Yes.
So that's the most important thing, is that they're tax deductible.
It. Yeah. That's it. So one last question, we'll start wrapping things up here, but I wanted to ask, so month to month or sign a new lease, or how do you go about that? Like, do you like going month to month? This one I actually get quite a bit.
Yep.
I just got it again the other day, and someone was saying, hey, should I try to get my tenant to sign a new 1-year lease, or is it okay to let them go month to month?
It's beneficial to you. The answer is cut and dry to me. It's month to month every time. I can't wait for that first year to be over. And the reason for that is that some of the end forms specifically tie you to an inability to move if you have a 1-year lease in place. The example here would be I have I have a property that I want to sell, right? But it's best suited for an end user to buy. And that end user can't take over that unit until a 1-year lease is done. That's the problem there, right?
Example.
It provides me with no flexibility. There's no benefit to having a year-long lease. I do like it at the very beginning. I want somebody to be tied in and feel like it's home, and they don't have to worry about moving next month or 60 days notice or whatever that is. But the moment that it can go month to month, let it. 100%. All the same rules apply. Every single bit of it. Time frame shrink and flexibility increases. That's your answer.
And why don't you do a month-to-month lease from the start?
Personal preference, I suppose, right? But I do think that the benefit is you come across as the right kind of person to be renting from, right? I don't want to say like, hey, Jake, you're renting from me and this is the most flexible thing for me, so sign this, right? Yeah. It's like, welcome home, right? Yeah. Feel secure in this. Here you are. This is standard. Everything about this. I don't want to go month to month. That's what you say, right? But what you feel is in month 13, perfect. Yeah. I have options again if I ever needed them. The whole point of real estate wouldn't be to offload everything 13 months later, right? But you want the option to be able to. When you identify things in your portfolio that may or may not need to move, right? If you don't have the flexibility to do so, you've hamstrung yourself all of a sudden. So don't, right? You don't need to.
No, and that's and I've personally never had a tenant come to me and say, "Hey, I want another 1-year lease."
Never.
I don't. Yeah. Okay. I was going to say, I don't think that's very common. I do know some people have brought that to me and said, hey, my tenant wants another 1-year lease. What should I do? How do I go about that? And I think you mutually have to agree upon another lease. I don't think it automatically goes to that month to month.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that you need to mutually release them. So N11 and then sign a new lease, right? So we agreed to dissolve the lease on December 31st, but your new lease starts on January 1st. Not only are you creating less flexibility, but now there's more paperwork to do. Why?
That's why. And nothing really changes, just for the better when it goes to that month to month. That's awesome. Well, Bobby, I appreciate you coming on. Before we wrap things up, is there anything, you can give it for advice? I always like to call it the power moment at the end here where we give, I'm going to give you, I'm not going to say anything. I won't even nod and agree, but it can be as simple as, hey, I listened to this podcast, or here's a good book, all the way to let me explain one last thing about tenancies or anything. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I'm going to.
Yeah, well, this is an incredible way to put me on the spot. I love this. No, I don't know how to say this other than like be in tune with what your portfolio is and what it is not. In our positions at REC Canada, like we do portfolio analysis, or we call them real estate action plans for people. 70% of my time is doing that with investors, and investors inevitably or invariably, they want one thing, and they're so focused on whether it's cash flow, whether it's the best deal, whether it's appreciation, but whatever it is for whatever that person is trying to do, right? It's that one thing that they have to have. And I think my favorite part of our portfolio is that it is so all encompassing that I'm not sure I actually worry about any one thing anymore. Okay. And it's not a huge portfolio, like call and ask. It really isn't that big a deal to even share it. Right. But it, it provides me the right equity appreciation mix, and it provides me enough cash flow to ensure that I'm covered in the case of an emergency. But it also provides me flexibility for refinancing, so I'm not locked into too many things all at once. I have some future stuff that doesn't appear on a credit report, like a pre-construction condo, but I also have great credit in the backside because I have that many mortgages that are being paid on a consistent and on-time basis. Don't look for just one thing, I think, is the actual message, right? Like,
I like that. Yeah.
diversify, but that's a buzzword.
Yeah.
You know, it's make sure that your goals are aligned with what you actually have. Be willing to identify and be harsh with what you actually have, because you'll just get better at it over time. And then fail forward.
Yeah.
We talked about it earlier. It's not a big deal to have purchased something that didn't appreciate the way you wanted it to. It's not a big deal that your cash flow is $100 a month and not $500 a month.
Yeah.
It will get to where you want it to go, because this is a time play anyways. Fail into the future. You're going to look back 10 years from now, and I mean, you're going to be a retired chiropractor working at REC Canada, apparently, right?
No, I couldn't agree with you more. And that's something, I try to stress with all investors, right? And they watch the podcast, they follow the groups, they listen to their coaches, and it's fantastic. And if, but I always hear these investors come and go, I want to buy 5 buildings this year, Bobby. I want to buy 5 billion and retire by the end of next. And I'm like, okay, we can do it. I'm not gonna stop you. I'm here. Let's go. But it's also okay to own 2 rental properties and a condo.
Yep.
And be happy with that and be satisfied with that and work your day job, or slowly grow your portfolio and plan, hey, maybe I'm not going to retire next year, but maybe I'll retire 45, 50 instead of, whatever your other retirement options are. So
yeah,
I think the moral of the story, from what I'm picking up there is, it's okay to move slowly and learn as you go. And I can't agree more, right? I'm with you on that. So.
I think I had one of the best investors I know sit me down at one point. Like, I think maybe because Laura and I were churning really quickly, we were trying to get to where we wanted to go so fast. And every relationship kind of has, we always say this, like a gas and a brakes. Laura's very much the brakes, right? I see a million opportunities a day is what it feels like. There's opportunity everywhere. You just have to know how to see it, right? But he sat me down and he was like, you're going to wake up in 5 years and you're going to have a portfolio that people are envious of anyways. And it's not the envy part that matters, right? But you're going to have this portfolio, right? And they're going to be envious of it because they're going to see then that you laid the right groundwork for what it is. Great appreciation in some cases, great cash flow in others. And like, I can go back to all of those examples, but 5 years later now, right? I think, like I said, 2015. So it'd be about 7 years later after I moved back from Canada. And we don't worry about many things, Jake. Like, I think that maybe that's the goal that people need to be striving for. It isn't retirement. I just don't want to worry about anything. And I don't, right? Which is why, like, flat out, which is why REC Canada isn't work for me. Yeah. It isn't. So again, Chiro was work. We talked about that. I get to go to REC Canada in the office and the next builder down the line or the next marketing agency or whatever building we're going to launch with 50 agents tomorrow. And it feels stressful in the moment. And I come home and I don't worry about shit. Yeah. Sorry. I don't know if I'm even supposed to.
You're good. Yeah, no, it's just free format.
Right.
I like that. Yeah. Sorry, continue. Yeah.
No, I just don't worry about things. I feel retired. I could just stop if I wanted to, but now it's a passion. And I found that. And like I feel like maybe there's a million lessons to be learned. Fail forward, find something you're passionate about, be critical with yourself. It's a hard look in the mirror, but critical thinking skills, and just have fun with it, right? Real estate will erase any of your mistakes over time anyways. So try not to make any, but you're going to, so fail forward. Who cares?
That's it. And it's, and I think you can even, from what you're saying, right? I'm not saying full retirement or complete substitute your income, but to get to that level of comfortability, right? That could be one building, that could be one house for an individual,
Yeah.
Right. So even just that first one to say, hey, this is going to bring me, I don't know, $25,000 a year cash flow. That could be the difference between, do we need the discount steak tonight, or are we going to buy the nice steak tonight for some people, or somewhere in between from there, and are we buying the Ferrari or not? But and it's really nice. And that's something I've realized with real estate as well, where, I don't think I would ever retire because I would get too bored. I would need to do something. And like my portfolio right now, I could definitely live a very, very, very modest life off of what my portfolio brings in. But it definitely makes me happier and enjoy my job much more, because now it's not so much, hey, I need to put food on the table, but rather let's build something here and make this a fun experience.
And use your examples there, Jake. Like the $25,000 annually, right? Might be $2,000 a month to you. And that might be the difference between a night out and not, and a new vacation spot or not, or whatever that is. But that's also year one. And remember what that investor told me, right? Super savvy guy sat me down. 5 years from now, that's going to look a lot different. It's going to provide you different options. It's going to do all of the things you want it to, because that's what time will do in real estate. So bear with it. There's no rush to this. Yes, I want 5 buildings too this year, right? Like, who are you talking to? I'm a sicko, like, of course. But
I think we all are on the team, man. It's,
right? But that's why we get
along,
and that's why people are watching your podcast and listening in. Is that they want those things too, but understand that that comes with pitfalls as well. And given the right amount of time, you'll get to your 5 buildings. You'll get to what you need to do. So slow it down. Be critical with everything that you do, but also never be afraid to act, because everything is a double-edged sword. Everything, right? So
I think it's act with intent, right? You need to act with intent, rather than just coming to somebody and saying, get me 5 buildings this year. Okay, why? Right? Why do we need 5 buildings? How are we going to buy the building? What's the strategy? So, and again, that could be a whole nother podcast, and I think we will do one on that. Get you back on, because we just broke into the surface here of what. Yeah.
Well, I mean, will it be number 8, or you don't even know what number you're on anyway? So it's not a big deal.
It'll be number 2, and we'll do it in a year from now, man. It's one of those things where I keep trying to keep track of it. I'm like, hey, where are we at? And I don't think it really matters what episode, but more so the value we get from the episode. So
this was a ton of fun, Jake. I mean, we do this at the office all the time. So why not let people in a little bit? Maybe is what.
Well, that's what I thought, right? And that's what this is about. Let's have some conversations that that normally people wouldn't be privy to.
Yeah.
And just have those here, right? And it's awesome. But again, thank you, Bobby. I appreciate you taking time out of your day. I know you guys are absolutely slammed right now, but let's do this again. I like it.
I loved it. Thanks so much, Jake. I really appreciate it.
Alrighty, have a good one.